Hearthstone Grandmasters for the Americas, the final day has started. The beginning of the end. First match that we have coming up here, relegation match. Purple versus Nagi Don. Two players who have had incredible careers so far, but for one of them, their Grandmasters career will take a temporary or potentially permanent halt here. As we have what could be the final games of both players' Grandmasters career. We've been saying that all week. Now it's finally been a reality here. And we're going to start things off with quite the spicy mix-up once again. Nalguidan, he's kind of been going back and forth. Is it ban Warrior? Is it ban Demon Hunter? And of course, it's lineup dependent, I'm sure. But against Purple, he's going to go ahead and ban Demon Hunter and leave up the Warrior. And that's what he's going to leave it all on the line for here.
Yeah, like you mentioned, he's been banning up the Demon Hunter quite a bit during this season, and obviously if he's in this match, it maybe hasn't been working out the best, but sticking with it. So he's gonna have to face a Warrior, and he's going to be running into it with his own Demon Hunters, West Warlock and Spell Druid. I don't know, Frodan. Like, when it comes down to it, what do you think? Like, it just seems like not banning the Warrior, banning the Demon Hunter instead, just isn't working. But Nalguidan, this is his plan. This is what he's decided to stick with. But this is a scary deck that he's going to have to play against.
It's really scary, and I think it's particularly scary because this is the time where you have to really stick to the best possible chances. Whatever your guns are, stick to the best chances that you have to get this series win. And bans and conquests already are somewhat of a contentious thing. I know, people like Brian Kilber, for example, have long questioned whether or not bans are even should be considered in conquest. But the idea is that it helps influence your percentages pretty dramatically if you, ban decks that get really easy wins against your lineup versus those that struggle to. And I think that Nalguidan, I'm just going to go ahead and trust his judgment here because at least in terms of, I believe that he believes it's the best ban. I don't have the data in front of me. He obviously has put a lot of games in. There was weeks where Nalguidan would be tweeting his HS replay data to show you what he thought about the matchup and all of his practice games. And so there's a lot of logic and reason that goes behind it. And, it might be a controversial decision given when you compare to everybody else banning Warrior. Yeah. But at the same time, I want to see if it works out. If it does, he took a risk and it will be paying off in spades.
Well, a lot of it comes down to personal comfort, too. And if he just feels more comfortable playing against a Warrior, that's a good reason to leave it open. But we are going to have Warrior in our very first game versus the Druid for Nalguidan. And one of these players keeping their Grandmaster spot, the other one going home. And we'll see who it'll be in, 5 games or less.
Yeah, well, we like to say here in Grandmaster, it's actually win or stay home. That's kind of the way we do it, because we play remotely. We have all the Grandmasters fly in to the World Championship. Obviously, with BlizzCon, details have been announced lately due to the spread of COVID. We're not really sure how things will be developing for that show. The announcement will be coming later. But in the meantime, both these players, they're not necessarily gunning for that. They're gunning for a chance to just stay in the program.
Yep.
So that being said, the early game here has kind of been very good for the Druid. Nalguidan has successfully landed Fungal Fortunes without discarding a minion. That seems to be a rarity for him. And now he's got a really good curve. Fungal Fortunes, Wild Growth, and Overgrowth.
True enough. Purple with a pretty good pickup with the freebooter. So you do have a situation where you don't need to really be afraid of getting swiped anymore in this Druid matchup. So you can just put a bunch of 1/1s out on the board and put the pressure on early, and an Inner Rage on the egg just helps him continue to do the damage. And now Nalguidan already facing a threat of a pretty significant amount of damage coming in if he doesn't clear some of this.
Yeah, this is 5 power on the board. If you were to smash all the stats together, it'd be a 5/6. That's annoying for Drew to deal with. It's not impossible, but you don't want that hitting you every single turn. And so now Nalguidan, he was planning to play Overgrowth for quite some time. I think a couple of questions go into his mind of, is it worth spending removal here at all? Are you supposed to hero power? Are you supposed to even just forget the board state and then go for Fungal Fortunes as well this turn? There's several questions going on in his mind, because the thing is, if he ramps into Overgrowth, he can actually use some of these cards like Bog Beam and Iron Bark immediately, because you do have those 7 mana crystals.
That's the thing. I think at the end of this, I do like the Overgrowth a little bit more because he gives him, like you said, access to some of those cards.
Time waits for no one.
And we'll see what he decides to use with it. Obviously, if... okay, so yeah, he can use this to clear that minion, potentially. He dedicates the... Well, I guess Bog Beam doesn't quite do it, does it?
No, it
For some
doesn't
reason
quite do it.
In my head, it was a 3-3 instead of a 3-4. But either way, without the mana, you're definitely not able to do with it. So, or deal with it, rather. So at least he has that now.
Yeah, exactly did. Perhaps one thing example is purple.
I'll show you who's boss.
Whoa. You're turning into a bit of a robot right now, Dan. So, it's going to be a risky skipper turn instead, as we see if Rodan can get the audio issues resolved here. Back over to Nalguidan, and so now he does have the mana to possibly deal with some of this, but doesn't really have a lot of cards to contest the board, so it might just be Fungal Fortunes into possibly like a Glowfly Swarm if he's lucky, but it's a little bit rough already. Another Ironbark is nice. Soul the Forest. Okay, so there's... Oh no, he discards a Mount Seller, and he's got another one in his deck, but just losing that right now on a turn where you really want to find a way to put minions on the board, you know you're not going to have a chance of drawing that one. You're going to have to draw your one of instead of a two of. It's a little bit rough. So he's got a couple spells to dedicate to this. Maybe feel a little bit more comfortable with that, knowing that you have one less Mount Seller anyway. And at the end of the day, it's not as bad as it could have been. So now, back to purple. Has the opportunity for the Livewire Lance to add a little bit more to his hand, but yeah, this may just be Bomb Wrangler and press damage turn, it looks like. Alright. So knowing that Nalguidan just put a lot of resources into removing things on the board, he's not going to have a lot left in his hand, and you can see from Nalguidan's face right now that drawing that Savage Roar with really nothing to use it with is a painful experience. He's only got the ability to produce one minion right now in the Power of the Wild, and that's not going to help a whole lot. So it isn't just that Warrior's a tough matchup, it's that Nalguidan just isn't drawing what he needs to handle this. 18 health remaining. We look back over at Purple's hand, we know that Grommash Inner Rage is in there as well, so a big possibility for burst damage, and he gets a little bit more mana. And yeah, Nalguidan, can't blame him having to dedicate the Savage Roar just to clear the Bomb Wrangler. That's not bad. I mean, you do deny those big risky skipper turns with like a lot of bombs coming in. Corsair Cache is a draw for purple, so has the ability to possibly pick up Ankar. With the Livewire Lance in the hand already, like, you know, why not? Just continue doing this, continue stacking the board with minions again that Nalguidan has shown he doesn't really have the ability to handle right now. And it's definitely looking like purple is going to cruise to a win here in game one. That said, though, Druid can have some pretty explosive turns to turn things around, but 10 health, you really can't afford any more rough draws here if you're Nalguidan. So finding a taunt is helpful. Malagos, honestly, is an interesting choice. Yeah, okay, I was wondering if he was going to pick that, because it is a 412 body, and having the ability to chain that into some higher damage spells like a Moonfire or something like that. Bog Beam, obviously, is going to benefit from it. So he's got a way to clear some bigger minions with this. But we'll see. I'll get down thinking. But again, cards like Soul the Forest are just so unappealing on something like just a 4/8. Yeah, do you just Power the Wild here?
Time waits for no one.
Get yourself a little bit more presence on the board at the moment. 10 HP, you don't really have any room for error. And if we're looking at the damage that purple's going to be showing over the next couple turns, it's going to be tricky. So yeah, you just overgrowth, get the excess mana. What's going to be from the Livewire Lance? Okay. So another card generating lackey, at least. Not that he really needs a whole lot of it. But this is kind of what we were talking about. The coin, Grommash comes in with the Inner Rage. That's going to be enough to do the dealing or do the deadly damage against Nalguidan, and purple is going to go ahead and take game one. And this, kind of brings us back to the question the entire time that we've had about Nalguidan's choices as far as bans go in Grandmasters. Not banning the warrior takes a loss from it right away. And again, the draws were really rough for Nalguidan that game. So you really can't say, oh, it's just a big matchup thing. But warrior is shown over and over again to be, arguably the strongest deck in Grandmasters, and so not banning it, definitely a little bit of a problem. So on that note, we're going to try to get Frodan back in the call here, and while we do that, we're going to take a quick break, but don't go anywhere. Lots more Hearthstone Grandmasters with this crucial match between Purple and Nalguidan coming up right after this.
Hearthstone Grandmasters is brought to you by T-Mobile. Switch today and rank up to America's largest 5G network. T-Mobile.
When a loss means automatic relegation, having to figure out lethal on a board like this is a tall order indeed, but for everyone's favourite player Tice, it's as easy as 1-2 TTT.
Flick his own kobold lackeys, yeah, sure. He does flick his own kobold lackeys. This is great. I think Ty's got a little bit messy with how he executed it, but there was so much damage over that it was so unlikely to matter at the end. And that, I believe, with a very clean 3-0, now means that Tice has secured himself a spot in the relegation bracket.
After a miserable start to the round robin, Frosty finds himself in a game versus Tyler where if he loses, he is relegated out of Grandmasters. And when Tyler discovers the potential for lethal with Soulfire into Zephyrus, things are looking disastrous for Frosty.
This could just be it for Frosty. Zephyrus is discarded! Zephyrus is discarded! Oh my god! Frosty just wins! There's nowhere else. The Soulfires today, Derek! We saw it for Chonsu discard the other Soulfire. We saw it for Tyler! And it discards lethal! Frosty has one more shot! Going to game 5.
Frosty's Guardian Angel has swooped down and given him one last shot.
At 6 health, facing down 15 damage on board and a deck full of Dream Portals, things are looking grim for Nalguidan. But with Zephyrus the Great, no game is ever truly lost. By setting up for a very impressive Frost Nova, Nalguidan weathers Just Saiyan's onslaught of dragons for one crucial turn to clutch the victory for his first win of the round robin.
Well, that's what I was wondering. Yeah, if you could just delay things and get a Frost Nova out of Zephyrus.
Then he has Malygos, Rain of Fire, and Nether Breath, and Soulfire. Yeah. That's... Oh, and he doesn't have enough mana to play the second Rain of Fire.
But I will trust you, and I will trust Nalguidan, who thinks the same thing. Nether Breath first to get the health back. And that's going to allow you to survive the Rain of Fire, I think.
Oh my god.
Did he actually do it? And Just Saiyan can't believe it.
And he sequenced it probably just in case Saiyan has some kind of weird dragon in hand, but that's gonna do it. Nalguidan gets his first win of the round robin.
To truly master Hearthstone, one must learn to use an opponent's strength against them. And in this game, Frozen gives us a stunning demonstration of just such a mastery. By using the power of ETC's Moarg Artificer to his own benefit, Frozen is able to clear a seemingly unclearable board with the power of Blade Dance for 14 damage.
You also have I-Beam.
Yeah. Oh, so he has I-Beam to guarantee the Blade Dance lands on all of these. The Blade Dance with the Moarg Artificer also doubles.
Oh, that's a good point. I forgot the Moarg Artificer was out there.
Wow.
Dude.
Oh no, the Moarg sabotaging the Warlock once more.
Oh, that's insane.
Demon Hunter is like jazz. It isn't about the cards you do play, it's about the cards you don't play, and Glory knows that better than anyone. By holding back on a perfect looking frozen Shadow Weaver on turn 3, he is instead able to freeze Flurry's face going into turn 5 to beautifully play around both Warglaves and Twin Slice plus Glavebound. Nice. Say he top decks a good play here, like a Satyr Overseer. He's just left with another card in hand that he didn't spend.
I got you, friend.
But he ends up with a good outcome, perfect way to spend his
Fantastic
mana,
outcome.
and it protects the Shadow Weaver from dying straight up to Kayn.
Welcome back, everybody, to Hearthstone Grandmasters, and we just saw Nalguidan drop game 1 to that warrior from purple, a crucial match to decide who stays in Grandmasters and who will be out and having to requalify later. Let's take a look at one of the other decks we're going to see here. It's Nalguidan's Tempo Demon Hunter, and so this stuff pretty run-of-the-mill, although the inclusion of 2 Bone Chewer Brawlers, rather, is something that people have been kind of toying around with. 2 is a big commitment. It's interesting to see him try that. No Valpyra Scoundrel as well. So a little bit different than the usual, I suppose, backtracking what I said a moment ago. And that looks like it's going to be going up against Purple's Galakron Secret Rogue. So another deck that has been a little bit on the bubble as far as bring or not. But we'll see if you can get a win with it right now and get the 2-0 lead in the series. We're still trying to get Frodan back into the broadcast, having some internet issues on that end, so I will do the best I can here as we check out game number 2 between Purple and Nalguidan. Hopefully Frodan rejoining us soon. The turn 1 prep as he gets the ambush down, and so against Demon Hunter, I think that's actually a really good play from Purple, because you know that you're going to be having to deal with some early minions 9 times out of 10 of Demon Hunter. Nalguidan already presented with a bit of a tricky situation, because if it does end up being ambush, which we know it is, and which I think Nalguidan can safely assume that it is, you run to a situation where it's like, all right, suddenly my Battle Fiend runs into a 3-3, suddenly all my early minions are kind of running into something that's a little bit too big for them to handle. And so that just honestly puts a hard stop on Demon Hunter's early game in this matchup a lot of times. It's really interesting. I actually, it's a lot of resources for Purple to dedicate to this, but it basically just says take 2 turns in a row almost, because Nalguidan was only able to get the hero power done. Purple as well, just kind of waiting. And I like this. I think Purple has really put Nalguidan in a tricky situation here. Bladeborn Adept was the draw, and Mana Burn in hand as well, but you're still so nervous about playing this card. You know, maybe you coin out the Shadow Weaver, but again, that seems like a really inefficient use of the coin, but you got to deal with the ambush sometime. And I believe we are actually going to have Frodan back here in a moment.
That's right.
Hey.
I think everything's ready to go. Sorry
Welcome
about that. Area outage on the internet. But,
So this may come as a shock.
I had
to
my
you.
people talk to their people, so, and I said, listen, I understand that there are technical difficulties going on, but I got some Hearthstone I got to cast. So.
Yeah, well, I mean,
Said right away, Mr. Joe.
this may come as a shock to you, but the Warrior deck won in game number 1.
Ah, wow.
Wow.
That is pretty shocking to me.
I know.
Actually, so really weird was that I actually saw the entire game, but I couldn't connect back to our server that we're using. I couldn't go on the Discord and message the admins and talk to the production team what was going on. But I could see the entire game, so I saw exactly how it panned out, where just like you finished with the Grom.
Yeah.
It was so weird. I don't understand what was going on. I felt like I was frozen in time and I couldn't interact. You know, I was like a ghost.
It was like you were
trying to
in this invisible plastic prison where you could see me solo casting, and you're like, no, I want to say something. I think that's what all the fans are doing too,
which he did.
Yep.
Very good choice there by Purple, because kind of like what we're talking about, like Rogue does struggle in the early game sometimes to get started. And that prep ambush kind of reminds me of like an innervate play from Druid, because it just makes it difficult for the Demon Hunter to get tempo, and that's what the deck really needs to do in this matchup.
Right. Nalguidan, the look on his face has been, I suppose, best described as a little bit of agony, because his early game was slowed down so much by that ambush play. And here we have the ambush as well popping up.
Yep, and so eventually you need to activate that ambush. I mean, it's not something that you're happy to do, but I mean, at the same time, there's not much that you can do. And you can kind of see why Purple really needed to get that early game on their way, because he ended up drawing just air, so he ends up passing. Can't even, attack and re-dagger. Not the turn you're looking for if you're Purple. You can see him just kind of take a deep sigh. Sometimes Rogue just feels so clunky to play, despite them having so many cheap plays all the time.
Yeah, I mean, there is that. At the same time, though, you've got Shield of Galakron coming out the very next turn. Your opponent has nothing on the board. You've got 29 health. Your hand definitely feels bad, but because of that prep ambush play, he's actually been able to sustain himself through the early game here.
It's true, and the early game is usually one of the hardest parts for the tournament. Not for the tournament, for the series. For Rogue, because you really want to try and get the things snowballing, and you really want to be able to get ahead on board and leverage that board to get damage in through cards like Blackjack Stunner, and then you start using your lackeys to get ahead.
Yeah.
But this is a very, very slow start, so it might be one of those things where even though Purple made a good play to get momentum on his side, it might be too slow.
Possibly. Kayn Sun Fury was the play from Nalguidan. Really thinking about that one a lot, but it does do things like negate this taunt. It's not going to stop him from playing the Shield of Galakron, obviously, because it is a nice big body. It does give you that lackey with the invoke. But Nalguidan can still choose to push damage to face if he wants to, although I feel like you probably got to deal with this 4-5.
Yep. The 4-5... I mean, it could be problematic. It's just that it challenges your Gladebound Adept, so I think that's ultimately the first thing he's thinking about.
What do you think about a coin hero power, then Gladebound Adept to finish off the Shield of Galakron?
I don't mind that. I think that's pretty solid, just because you want to protect it. I think the Warglaives is also very good, because it sets up something similar, but even potentially more accelerated tempo on the following turn. So both of these are completely valid to me.
I grow impatient.
Let's see. I suppose the tricky part is that if you play Warglaives now, you can't kill the Shield of Galakron this turn without running into it, right? Unless I'm missing something math-wise. Gladebound Adept will build the board, but you really do want to give get the Warglaives out. And so he's going to go with the Gladebound Adept turn. I can definitely see where the Warglaives was really tempting, because like you said, that could lead to an accelerated mid-game. But seems like Nalguidan's just kind of feeling some of the pressure of not being able to really pressure Purple early on.
Well, I mean, Purple
Waxadread
doesn't have a way to answer this board right now.
Not really.
And from the way things are ramping up here, because of his missed turn 4, I think that he might be in trouble. He doesn't have a secret for the Blackjack Stunner. He's actually really hoping that this lackey might give him some capability to potentially rush onto the board or do something. No, just another Draconic Lackey. That's pretty bad.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
All right.
Oh, jeez.
Now it's time for some serious damage from Nalguidan.
Yeah, he can go ahead and equip the Warglaives.
Yep.
Twin Slice Hero Power, kill off the board. Push 6 on top of the 9 there. So he's got 15 damage. Rogue's down to 8. This is looking pretty bad.
Sure is.
And what's really, sad to think about is Rogue's supposed to be very competitive in this matchup, and it just does not look like it at all. So it would be 2 very one-sided matches to start off this best of 5.
I think it comes down a lot to that early game, which we were saying earlier. I was saying earlier that he had handled nicely, which he did in terms of not taking much damage, but he just didn't draw anything to give himself any sort of a board presence. Down to 11 HP. The mana burn comes in at a pretty crucial turn here because it stops the Galakron, it stops the Trade Prince. So Purple really needed that mana this turn specifically.
Yes. And so what can we do here? He has to find and dig somehow, but it looks like it's all for naught. There's really nothing that can help him here.
Yep. Not a whole lot. A lot of stuff. No money to use it. 11 HP, going to be easily dealt with by Nalguidan. Only needs 2 more from hand, which we know he has in multiple ways. And so it's going to be a tie series. Nalguidan takes game 2.
All right, so with that, 2 quick games, and, you know, it's one of those differences, right? Like the Demon Hunter versus the Warrior, those are the 2 banned decks. Those were the 2 decks that got their easy wins. So now it comes down to decks 3 and 4, and we've seen this actually play out several times throughout the weekends. In fact, it's just kind of been a storyline throughout most of the season. Since we started Grandmasters right after Ashes of Outland was released, we've been kind of seeing the dominance of Demon Hunter and then the rise of Warrior. So these 2 classes, you can see for a good reason why they are very often brought and banned. And then you're left with 4 unique classes that are trying to vie for the number 3 spot. Hunter, Rogue, Druid, and Warlock in particular right now. Those are the 4 classes that people are picking to be in their lineups the most.
Right. And there's so many permutations right now if you look at these 4 different classes of like how they match up into each other. So you kind of just go with whatever you're comfortable with at the moment and see what you get as far as your opponent's matchup. They're going to have to win with all their decks anyway at some point. So we'll just have to kind of wait and see what the deck choices are going to be from the players.
That's right. So, you know, taking a look at how things are going to shape up in the head-to-head, Hunter looks pretty good against the Warlock, but might struggle against at least on paper, right? The Dragon Spell Druid might have different matchup percentages against classes like Hunter, but it seems to be very competitive against it, even if Hunter has an easier time utilizing things like Rottennest Drake against bigger threats like the Emerald Explorer. And then the other side is the Rogue, which, you know, it really depends on which kind of side of Rogue wants to show its face during the series.
Checking out the Hunter from Purple right now, the Highlander Hunter. It's a deck that has been pretty consistently strong for a long time in Hearthstone now. Survived into the Ashes of Outland meta. And we'll see how it does today. But you were saying you'd like to see this run into the Warlock as far as like what the Hunter would perform best into.
Well, I think that, you know, Hunter versus Warlock just kind of helps reinforce the same kind of game plan for the Hunter. Hunter wants to deal damage, and Warlock deals damage to itself, so it tends to line up really well. Both hero powers tend to point in the same direction. And that's actually always been the problem for Warlock versus Hunter in general. Even going back to how, you know, Handlock or Zoo Warlock versus like any kind of mid-range Hunter, it's always been a struggle. There's been times where, like, you know, you get really fast onto the board with Zoo, and you were at, you know, there was different times in metagames where Warlock was favored versus Hunter, but it's kind of rare. Hunter seems to always have the upper hand.
Well, we'll find out if that is going to be the case in this particular game as we go into the third one in this series between Purple and Nalguidan. Battle for survival here in Grandmasters. So what do you keep if you're Purple here? Obviously, probably throw back the Grand Slam. He's just going to throw everything back. Just wants to really prioritize finding one of those 1-drops. Doesn't find it, but at least you have something like Scavenger's Ingenuity. You have some ways to put together an early board. Oh, there we go. Wow. Off the top, finds the Imprisoned Felma, and that's a easy decision to coin that out.
Yeah, I think the Imprisoned Felma is so big. It's very important. You know, I've been saying it all season long. It's one of the best early game cards for Hunter, if not the best, just because of how much pressure it puts out. And even though you do get it delayed, you're not really sweating it. This curve from Purple is pretty interesting. Wait, is that his only other beast in the deck?
I'm trying to see if he has something else. Don't think he does.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that may be both beasts. Oh boy.
It's not the end of the world.
It is awkward.
But, I mean, because he does have hero power, and again, that's still technically accomplishing his game plan.
Yeah, sure.
But it's not great. He doesn't have, say, the Escape Mana Saber. But if I'm Purple, like, maybe there's an opportunity to, you know, just have reassurance that if you play Zixor and you play Scavenger's Ingenuity, you're going to draw that. Right. And then as long as he doesn't draw Faceless Corruptor, he's going to have Diving Griffin into Faceless Corruptor.
So this board presents a bit of a problem for Nalguidan. He doesn't have Dark Skies or anything like that. He does have a Nether Breath Moarg to clear one of these, but you've taken a lot of damage already, and even, you know, with the healing that Warlock can put together, the pressure is definitely on. So, yeah, I think you kind of do have to. Oh no, he's gonna go for Rain of Fire. All right, and then the Mortal Coil to finish off the Felmaw. All right, you lose a little bit more health, but at least you continue drawing. Seems a bit dangerous though, doesn't it?
Yeah. Well, I think overall you still need to just like do your best to take out what you can, and a lot of times with Warlock, you don't get the optimal lineup of things, so you have to compromise a lot.
Right.
This Zephyrus is pretty interesting. I don't think this is the time to go for it. I think what you should be considering as purple is what's the best possible board to set up so that way Zephyrus can push for lethal. And in this current scenario, purple's looking pretty good. It seems like Nalguidan doesn't have the optimal hand, and he doesn't even have like ways to gain a lot of life at the moment. He hasn't played Sense Demons. He clearly has not shown a Dark Skies opportunity.
Right.
So it's pretty good for purple so far.
Ugh, has to life tap again just to grab a little bit more. I mean, yeah, Swampoo's deals with the weapon, and it does match up against the Zixor, I suppose, on board, but your opponent can just kind of continue to ignore it and push damage to face, and if he doesn't find some healing via just drawing or maybe like plot twisting into some Broodmothers next turn, or, you know, finding another Moarg for the Nether Breath, Nalguidan might be in some pretty serious trouble here.
Wow. Actually, that Dragon Draw is pretty nutty.
I was about to say, yeah, suddenly Corrosive Breath is online.
Yeah, that's going to be good to just hold for now. I'm trying to think for purple, like, what's the best 2-turn lethal setup here? Corrosive Breath actually might be a good setup for it, because I don't know if you get a chance to play Zephyrus and Corrosive Breath in the same turn. But at the same time, your development options, if you do play Corrosive Breath, are pretty weak.
Scavenger's Ingenuity.
Doesn't
do anything? So
yeah, because he actually didn't trade his Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Oh wow.
Oh wow.
I was.
Oh
yeah,
boy.
Purple.
Look alive,
Huge.
purple. Look alive. Look alive.
Trying to slap himself awake a little bit there too. I thought I was asleep for a second there too. I was like, what did I miss?
Yeah, I thought the observer client bugged. Oh no.
Oh, that hurts, because it also kind of tells Nalguidan what's in the hand too. And he does find the Zixor Prime, funny enough. But
yeah, that's a big deal if it ends up dragging out the length of this game, because, you know, Zixor being 6/6 versus 4/4 is a very significant occurrence.
No,
oh
poor
no.
Purple.
After all those tweets about how purple is like playing really well but getting really unlucky, I mean, he did get kind of an unfortunate situation that was kind of awkward, but like, at least he's taking it in good stride, you know?
When your brain is thinking about your turn like that too, you're thinking about all the things that are going to happen in the turn, you know, that you're envisioning. And sometimes while you're thinking about it, your hand just like does something that is part of the turn, but just not in the right order. And you know, that's what happened there clearly in purple. Like, what can you do, you know? I mean, everybody makes mistakes like that once in a while. Just ideally not in a situation like this. I'll see if he can recover. He's still got his opponent at 12 health. So there's still a lot of ways for purple to win this game, but Nalguidan has gotten a little bit of much needed breathing room. That's dangerous. Twisting Nether is a draw. Oh boy, Frodan.
Yeah,
This,
things
this
are
might turn
ramping
around.
up here pretty significantly. Nalguidan has the quest not even close to completed right now. If he were to go for a plot twist, he wouldn't be able to meaningfully develop behind it. At the same time, if you play things like the Abyssal Summoner, are you opening yourself up to potentially just getting blown out if your opponent has the removal?
Sure.
If he plot twists, he will be able to finish the quest, but like he would have to hero power and then like bank on whatever he draws, and that's just leaving things to chance right now.
Yeah, it does seem like you kind of need to make clearing that 5/5 part of your turn one way or another. Ooh, you might just go with the Abyssal Summoner though.
I think Abyssal Summoner and Soulfire here makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, that's probably what we would see, I would think, yeah.
Yeah, I think you just need to establish that tempo, and most importantly, take off any possibility for your opponent to get past that taunt.
Right.
You know, if they have Varanus plus change.
Right. Obviously, Rottennest Drake is another thing you're kind of worried about here, losing that 9/9 in the 50/50, but Purple doesn't have that in his hand right now. He doesn't really have too smooth of a way to clear this unless you want to maybe dedicate like a Zephrys to it, which might be the case here.
Yep,
Okay.
Shadow Word Death is guaranteed here.
Believe so. Yeah, there we go. And that's something where the new priest changes, well, I say new, but the priest changes that came through when Ashes of Outland came out help a lot there, because Shadow Word Death used to be 3 mana, so now able to get it for 2 makes a much smoother turn for Purple. All right, where are the Arnasi Broodmothers?
I mean, he's guaranteed to draw at least 1 right here because he's played the Morag Artificer earlier. Plot Twist doesn't. Plot Twist here looks also pretty solid. You could also convince me that Crazy Netherwing is the play here as well, but I think lowering myself to 13 when my opponent could play Dire Tamer Brain at any second is risky.
Yes.
So, and also for mana efficiency's sake, I think there's also legitimacy to just playing the Crazed Netherwing, but at the same time, I don't think you're in a position to counter push whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean, you might also think about Morg Netherbreath, which is not mana efficient, but like you said, if you're really worried about Dino Tamer Brand coming through, and you kind of want to heal and get as much damage off the board as you possibly can. Yeah.
Right.
It feels so bad because you're letting that 1 mana float, but gaining 8 health, you know, it's a pretty important thing right now in the game.
Well, Zixter Prime can come down, and even though, you know, they're just 4/4s, these are still problematic. And also, Nalguidan still might be tempted to play Twisting Nether. And wow, when he was down to, you know, potentially hitting the single digits, he's now bounced back to basically full life. The heal in this deck, absolutely absurd at times.
Oh yeah, I think I've seen a Quest Warlock deck earlier this season where I tracked something like 40-something healing throughout the course of the game. So this deck can outlast a lot if it draws the right cards. Twisting Nether seems like an option here. Otherwise, I suppose you could craze Netherwing Dark Skies? No, because then you'd be hitting your Netherwing. What am I talking about? Yeah, it's got to be Twisting Nether, right?
Yeah, you can't let 16 power stay on the board.
Yeah.
There were ways that he could do it, but none of them felt particularly good. Like Crazy Netherwing Dark Skies obviously doesn't feel great, so I think now Nalguidan chooses the Twisting Nether. But if you're purple, you're not like sweating it too much because the reality is, you know, your opponent just used Twisting Nether, one of the like de facto best AoE removals in the game, on one card. So it wasn't the end of the world there. And he's still able to have a lot of options at his disposal because he has Tiamat. He did end up picking the Deathwing, which I think is also kind of curious. That shows him that he might feel like this game might get to the point where he might need to use Deathwing defensively in order to address the board state if Nalguidan's this close to finishing the quest and he starts to put out big threats.
Yeah. Certainly seems like it might be a possibility because Nalguidan does have that board clear, and he does have more of an opportunity to do something like the Crazed Netherwing to contest a little bit more. I suppose in this case you could probably just drop a Broodmother, or, you know, actually Plot Twist now. What am I talking about? Because he still wants to complete the quest. It's weird, like I had this like sense that he'd already completed it because the game has gone so long that most Warlocks would be done by now. But yeah, still has not completed the quest, but agonizing over the decision. I think you go for the Plot Twist, though.
It's tough. But I think that you do want to finish the quest eventually, right? So, and you have 8 cards left in your deck. The nice thing about Plot Twist is that if you're holding only a few cards, you actually aren't going to shuffle that many in.
Huh, so he could... Oh, so he plays the Netherwing and taps. I thought maybe you play the Netherwing and Plot Twist, which I would have been okay with because you would have had a chance to heal up and stuff like that, but Just goes for the slower play. I guess he really thinks that he's going to need, maybe the Alexstrasza to his own face or the Keldan or something.
I think he's going to maybe approach Plot Twist as the backup option in case he doesn't draw. Like, let's say he draws next turn Dragon Queen Alexstrasza, Hero Powers hits another cheap card, like a Mortal Coil or something. And then Malygos is the next draw, because he's going to finish the quest next turn organically, which I think is totally fine. It's just that I think he's keeping the Plot Twist as a backup option. The only question becomes, does he get such luxury to do that when he's staring at 11 power guaranteed, and he doesn't have like a really good big tempo swing outside of this Keladon?
Right.
All right. The hero power is going to be huge here for Nalguidan.
At least he's got a clear. All right, free Abyssal Summoner. That's usually not a bad thing. Getting a pretty large taunt out if he decides to play it this turn, which I would imagine he would.
Yes.
Dark Skies does clear the Siamat, but you're also kind of worried about, things like Dino Tamer Brand coming in and stuff. So a free taunt, always a good thing in this situation.
Free taunt. I'd be tempted to just play Keladon with this. And part of me also wonders if Nalguidan should consider just plot twisting. Again, with like a smaller hand than he would want normally, but I think it also does make sense if you want to try and get a more definitive tempo swing. But it looks like Nalguidan wants to hold on to his Keladon, which I don't blame him either, because Keladon could, if you just draw him, like if you play Plot Twist and draw Keladon, it's also like another big AoE wipe.
Sure. Gets a 5/5 down, also gets a fairly large taunt, and of course it's a smaller taunt because he waited until the end, but he didn't want it to be damaged from the Netherwing, so that makes sense.
Oh, geez.
What does this give you access to? Unleash, Faceless as well.
So Nalguidan actually, what I realized he's done is set up a 2-turn lethal, which is very nice. I think that's something that I wasn't really thinking about, and I did say that he lacked counter pressure options, but he's been looking for that the entire game so far. And so, I take back a lot of the the defensive lines that I was thinking about, or like the combo lines. He's just playing very proactively and trying to get ahead of the Hunter, which he has. The only thing is that Purple has some of the best reactive cards in his deck right now in his hand.
Yeah. So something like a Corrosive Breath, Unleash, Faceless Corruptor could clear a lot of this and push a little bit more damage to face, pave the way for Brand to come down.
Yes.
In the next turn.
That does look good to me. I think Dino Tamer Brand also has merit to just come out as well.
I suppose you could.
Right, because he can... Oh, wow. Purple is going to use the Corrosive Breath here. He's playing completely defensively because he's actually afraid of the combo damage. He's counted.
Yeah, all right. Dragon Queen Alexstrasza. Okay, so
Where to order
Nalguidan's still hunting for some of those combo damage pieces yet.
Right. This is a good range counting here from Purple, just trying to make sure that Nalguidan doesn't get that free just kill, because and also if Purple went for aggressive play again, Nalguidan could just Alexstrasza himself and set Purple really far back.
Yeah, I suppose that is tricky when you're playing against the Quest Warlock when you try to set up your own 2-turn lethal, 3-turn lethals. It's always well, this will work if they don't have some sort of massive healing turn, which Warlock has pretty often.
What's starting to get scary, too, is that Purple doesn't have any more good removal options in his hand right now. So he has Faceless Corruptor, but that's not really going to do anything if your opponent, say, tempos out of Malygos and it's a clean board. So he would have to be stuck in a Deathwing scenario, and that would be tricky to navigate. Nalguidan goes for a Plot Twist, trying to see if he can go for some good draws. Oh my god,
he draws
all of his heavy dragons.
Basically, everything you would want to get from your quest, he drew before he was able to use his hero power, unfortunately. Does deal with the 8/8. Yeah, I was going to ask, do you Zephyrus here to try to remove it? No, he thought about it, but yeah.
It actually is just too slow of a response there from Nalguidan. If he wanted to play Zephyrus, he needed to tempo it out a lot quicker. But at the same time, there's no reason for him to haven't commit that Zephyrus, I think, because there isn't any guarantee that he had lethal because he just has Malygos and Soulfire in the hand right now.
Yeah. So Purple might just, do sort of a maintenance play, right? Where you put a little bit of stuff on the board in terms of Bone Chewer Brawler, and you just hero power and kind of wait to see what they have. Because Purple picking that Deathwing earlier, like we mentioned, kind of said that he expected the game to get to this point. And he looks stressed out right now, but he picked that Deathwing for a reason. The problem is that he knows his opponent still has some pretty big single target removal. So Deathwing might not stick, even if it gets to the point where he needs to play it.
Yeah, Celadon hasn't been used, for example. I think he has to play his Faceless Corruptor. Not like Taunt really matters very much in this position. Wow, prioritizing the 2 damage.
Sure.
I like it.
Yeah, I think you have to, right? You have to do something.
Another 4 life healed, but that's not a cheap card. This is starting to get really expensive. If I'm Nalguidan, I am entertaining the idea of playing Dragon Queen Alexstrasza here. I think you might need something super definitive to get way ahead on the board, because it seems like playing these mid-sized threats, these 4/6s, these these 5/5s that you get from Abyssal Summoner, etc., they're not really cutting it right now. I think you might have to go for something really big like that, with Dino Tamer Brand, Corrosive Breath, and a bunch of other cards being used. He ends up going for a tap, finds Nether Breath. Do you have to use it here?
I mean, a free Nether Breath on the 4/3 does save you a little bit of life loss next turn if it goes through. It gets you a little bit more healing again.
Wait.
Which you're going to need because you're going to start running into fatigue soon, too.
But he also has the ability to play Malikos, Nether Breath, and Soulfire next turn, and that's 18 damage from the hand. So if he plays Rain of Fire this turn, and plays Zephyrus, let's say he just picks up Multi-Shot or something to clear off the board. That's a really good
point. He knows it, too.
Right. Then there's not much that Purple can really do, because he has to kill from the hand.
Yeah.
Shadow
Madness.
Good as well.
Sure. Yep. That'll be a board clear. All right, so Malygos, Nether Breath, Soulfire. Yeah. Unleash the Hounds. Purple's just trying to find as much damage as he possibly can here. But that is not going to do it.
Yeah, and I think Purple kind of knows, with Nalguidan's last card being drawn, Malygos is guaranteed in the hand.
Yep.
And just by the hair of his Chinny Chin Chin, Nalguidan's going to be able to burst here, as long as he, of course, sequences this properly.
I was going to say, yeah, please no Soulfire before Nether Breath this turn. And he finds exact lethal with the Malygos combo. Takes the lead in the series. Nalguidan 1 win away from locking in that spot for Grandmasters next season.
That's right. And he is now down to his Druid deck, which has been giving him a lot of problems in yesterday's series.
Yeah.
We'll see if today ends up being any different. But at the same time, Purple still has his Hunter and his Rogue. And I'm not really sure, because, again, our sample size isn't really big. It's just that the Druid deck has gotten the wins against these kinds of classes. So
if I recall,
just needs to win once.
The Rogue had a pretty good record versus the Druid. Again, tiny sample size, but I think, what was it, 37% for Druid, Dragon, Spell Druid beating Rogue, if I recall? I'm trying to remember our graphic from earlier, but yeah, that might be the key for Purple there, but we'll see.
Yeah, and I think this does come down to Nalguidan just having to win one last game with Druid. It's going to be a little bit harder than he would hope for, because Druid seems to be struggling this weekend. Doesn't seem particularly consistent. I think some players have even been outspoken and saying that Druid might just be a poor choice for the lineup. I think it was, Saiyan saying it last week, and then this week, Saiyan, of course, choosing not to bring that for his top 4.
Worked for him, yeah. It was a close affair, but he got there anyway.
That's right. And, we do have a Druid player also in the top 4, Empanizado, playing a similar deck list. This was our T-Mobile deck spotlight cousin, if you will.
Sure.
Because Empanizado's version was the one that we were featuring, and he is one of the dark horses to pay attention to as we finish up the series and transition to our top 4. Yeah. But, I think that with Rogue versus Druid, these kinds of matchups are really back and forth. And I think a lot has to do with how, players like Purple adapt to his hand, and, how he prepares for the waves of threats that Nalguidan's going to be able to put out.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see how this one goes, because Nalguidan just kind of got a series of bad draws in game number 1 with this Druid, so we haven't really been able to see him, play it as its peak in this series yet. I was against Warrior, of course, which is a tough matchup, but still, he unfortunately drew pretty poorly that game as well. So we'll see if he can get the win over Rogue. If he does, stays in Grandmasters. If he does not, then we go to a game 5 where one game of Hearthstone will decide who stays in and who does not.
That's right. So with that, we have an opportunity to see Nagi Don stay in Grandmasters. This could be Purple's last game as a GM.
Could be. And he's got Galakrond into the opening hand. There are certain times where you want to keep that, but I don't know if this is one of them.
And there's a spreadsheet that was shared with me. There's a guy, Hockey Boys, who's been kind of in and out of the Hearthstone competitive scene and has been competing here and there. Actually made a spreadsheet saying that Nagi Don is top 3 currently in earnings based off the information that's out there. And so actually it's a fun fact that I wasn't something that I was thinking about right now because I was so focused on the relegation aspect. But there's a pretty good chance that he ends up staying as a Grandmaster. But of course, Masters Tour next week also does come into play and factor, I think. So,
right.
Nagi Don really wants to get that win just to ensure that he can stay as a Grandmaster.
Absolutely. Blackjack Stunner early on turn 1. Purple just doing the classic, pressure the Druid a little bit with a minion on board. That point of damage here and there can make a big difference. And you've also got the Praise Galakrond as well to make it hit slightly harder. Ooh. Right. Double Praise Galakrond. All right.
I like it.
Yeah. Suddenly it's a Flame Imp that doesn't hurt you. It just sucks cards from your hand.
Yeah, I think that the Praise Galakrond here, just to get the extra board presence and threaten the Druid, make him say, like, if you do want a Fungal Fortunes, you have to accept at least 3 more damage.
Right.
And make him play off curve. And this is a situation that Nagi Don probably doesn't feel super comfortable with. Usually you would want to rip Fungal Fortunes without a second thought, but it's not as clear in this position.
Yeah, Crystal Power could deal with the threat, but at the same time, you're slowing yourself down a whole lot. He does have Wild Growth for a... Oh no! Ysera Unleash gets discarded.
That's pretty bad.
Nagi Don has, unfortunately, done that a lot with Fungal Fortunes, it seems like, lately.
It seems to happen pretty often for some reason whenever you play this deck, but at the same time, I don't think it's something that's going to decide the game right now because, he does have the Mount Cellar and he's got a lot of ramp and he's got Glowfly Swarm. Those things could also just spell a Druid victory.
Definitely possible. Purple using the Seal Fate on himself just to try to get that fully invoked Galakrond as fast as he can, and he's only one away now. So that could be a very scary prospect for Nagi Don. That could be something that closes out the game if he's able to finish invoking it before turn 7.
Yeah, and dirty tricks against a spell-based deck.
That works.
Seems very good. This Twilight Drake seems also pretty sturdy. The thing is, Purple knows that Glowfly Swarm seems to be the likely candidate that comes out here, and with Savage Roar, being a threat, Nagi Don really needs to hope that this Glowfly Swarm gets some mileage here. He also did not find an extra minion, by the way. An extra spell. He drew a minion.
Yeah.
You can see him being pretty unhappy because he really wanted that extra Glowfly Swarm.
Yep. You definitely don't need both exotic Mount Cellars in your hand. Alright, it has to use a Crystal Power just to clear a little bit of the board. And what does Purple have to respond to this? Oh, he finds another Seal Fate. So if he uses it, he will have that fully invoked Galakrond. He's got a couple turns to do it.
Yeah.
Because still.
I definitely like this Edwin here just because it helps fights a little bit more efficiently. Your opponent can't just trade into it very conveniently. And now Nagi Don finds another Overflow. This is an awkward hand, very expensive. One Overgrowth would have tied everything really nicely together, but it's not really the case. And he feels like he has to Savage Roar here because he's afraid of that Edwin.
This is the only Savage Roar in his deck as well, so this is an extra big commitment for Nalguidan. Dirty Tricks just fills up Purple's hand even more. At least Nalguidan is able to clear this board, but things are looking pretty grim already for him in this game.
Yeah, so the awkward thing is he doesn't have actually an exotic Mount Seller pop-off turn.
Yeah.
So he might just have to overflow and then react to what Purple's doing, and that's a really big difference, right? The idea is that instead of taking the initiative, threatening with exotic Mount Seller, and forcing Purple to play his reactive cards, he's giving an opportunity for Purple to develop if he does end up playing an overflow. His alternative is to play exotic Mount Seller and Ironbark next turn, and that's also not that great.
So how much do you want to get damage to face here, and how much do you want to just trade? Looks like he's going to attack into the 2-1 at least with that. I think it's okay to leave the 1-1 on the board, although you are leaving a lackey up going to turn 6. So Baron Togwaggle is a concern, I suppose, but you need to get damage on something sometime if you're this Druid.
Yeah, it's interesting to me, particularly because Nalguidan has 2 overflows in hand, but I think based off this play, he's not going to play overflow. I think he says, I'm going to just stay ahead on board, and then I'm going to go ahead and play the Exotic Monster, get that 6 damage in. And I think, oh my god, great Lackey pickup with the Shadow Step. Purple shutting down the aggression from Nalguidan. Now Nalguidan might not have a choice but to overflow, unless he draws something else that can influence his play.
This hurts so bad, and that is a fully invoked Galakron now for Purple going into turn 7. The Moonfire helps a little bit. You've got 2 things you can do with the Mount Seller now. Yeah.
I think the Mount Seller looks justified in this position. Like, just the 1 Ironbark feels so weak. But he could consider the exotic Mount Seller in this position as well.
Overflow would be so... Doesn't that seem really greedy? You gain a little bit of health, but... Man, look at the board.
The alternative is that you get Moonfire and Ironbark and pray for a Rusher Beast, and that obviously is a low percentage. You know, overflow is guaranteed. It's going to do the same thing every time you play that card.
True. And if you don't overflow this turn, like, when are you going to, I guess?
That's another good question. Like, he's holding 2 cards which are, like, very difficult to play as Rogue starts to amass more resources. Those dirty tricks that were picked up by Purple, like, incidentally happen to be super impactful for Purple to get his... to keep the resource count even, because Nalguidan's been drawing a ton of cards, but so has Purple.
Yeah, and he also knows that Purple does have the ability to play a fully invoked Galakron on turn 7, because if he's been tracking it, he's seen that there's been 4 of them, so that's the I suppose that's the concern too, is that he expected this on turn 7, and you would not have been able to play overflow after this otherwise, so might as well do it last turn. Oh no. Wow. That is crazy good for Purple.
Yeah.
A Togwaggle makes everything else worthwhile.
Part of me wonders if he should consider taking the Xerix Crown. One, you know, again, most of the time that's what you're choosing every single time. But, you know, sometimes against classes that struggle against big removal, with big removal, like Druid, I mean, Xerix Crown can sometimes just generate too much tempo for them to come back from.
It's worth considering anyway. All right, another Ironbark is a good draw if he wants to do something like a Mount Seller this turn. He's 1 mana shy, though, of Glowfly, Soul Force, but I suppose you got to do this, right?
Yep, all the expensive cards. This is the risk of the deck when you have things like Emerald Explorer. Sometimes it's just going to sit there in your hand and you can't really get what you want from it. If you can get the ramp and curve out, it's great, but it doesn't seem always the most consistent, so you do have to accept that risk when you bring it in.
Right.
And now, Purple... If he just can get past these taunts, he has lethal, straight up. And Kronks is a lot of damage.
That's what I was saying, thinking. Does Kronks give you lethal right here? Let's see. He would just need to find a way to clear the taunts and get a little bit more through.
The Beast.
Okay.
He needs to make hand space so that he can go ahead and draw with Wondrous Wands. Looks like that's what he's going to go for.
Yeah.
If he draws a secret, he can actually just straight up sap this Mount Seller, and he does find it. He actually gets a Hanara as well, which is pretty fun. Needs to make space on the board as well. Very good.
He's got more than enough for this. Yeah.
Well, I don't think it's actually lethal.
Well, more than enough for setting it up anyway.
Don't let the door hit you.
Yeah, I mean, this kind of board, what are you going to do? Druid would need to actually have Deathwing, and even then, you're still dead because of the Grunts.
Right. And there's no Drake and Queen Alexstrasza or anything like that in Nalguidan's deck.
No, this is over. This is way too much momentum, and Nalguidan sits back, and recognizing that we might have history repeat itself where Druid's not able to get a win.
Yeah. There's not really an out for Nalguidan that we can see here. Nothing that clears the board enough. Or, does 25 damage or something. So it looks like we are in for a game 5. And we had the EU relegation match go all the way to game 5. Looks like that'll be the case for the Americas as well.
I wonder.
Nalguidan thinking if there's any possibility for an out here. I don't think any Mount Seller series of draws off this Breath of Dreams could save him, but I'll stand corrected if that's the case.
Fog Beam.
Right?
But remember, he needs to remove enough damage to live.
I mean,
just kill a taunt, yeah.
Okay, solid turn, I guess, but that's just too much pressure.
Yep, so the Beast can just swing in on its own, and that is a tie series between Purple and Nalguidan for a spot in Grandmasters next season.
Right, and once more we see Hunter, being the last deck for a player that needs to get through. This happened earlier today with APAC, where it came down to a Hunter mirror. And then you have the final games of today for the relegation bracket, at least going to feature that Hunter. But the Druid deck from Nalguidan, and again we pointed at it, wondered some questions. And at the end of the day, we do expect that these fourth decks are the ones that ends up being the X factor. That's always been the case for Conquest. That's always been what players who've been able to get a leg up over players are thinking about, like, how can I make use of this third and fourth deck a little bit better than my opponents to give me the best chances.
Right. And, I think it's worth mentioning, too. One wonders, if the Warrior had not been allowed to go through, would there maybe have been an opportunity to get a win against a Demon Hunter with something like Druid as well? So sometimes it kind of seems like this season Nalguidan's just been like, I'm going to play Hearthstone Grandmasters on hard mode and just, let the Warrior through.
Sure.
And, it's like we've said a ton of times, obviously Nalguidan has played a ton of practice games. He's analyzed the meta to death. He feels that this is the right way to go. That's what he feels comfortable with. But the results, unfortunately, are going to make it really difficult for him to escape this series. 2-2, Hunter versus Druid. This is it.
Yep. And here we go. The final game of the relegation bracket. 8 players have been relegated this season. A 9th will join them. And it comes down to these 2 players. Purple from Canada, Nagi Don from Argentina. Very good players in their own right. Some of the greatest of their country and their region. But only one can guarantee stay in Grandmaster. It does make me a little bit more hopeful for Nalguidan if he does end up dropping the series, given that information that we learned that he is very high up in the prize earning standings so far. For Masters past.
That's true.
But obviously, you'd love to see your efforts rewarded because he's been working very, very hard. That being said, look at these opening hands. Both players have great pieces for a starting hand. Purple has a 1-2-3. Nalguidan has Breath of Dreams and Overgrowth, but he has no dragon.
Yeah, he needs a dragon right now. Doesn't find it. So the Breath of Dreams, probably still gets played, but it's less appealing. Oh, well, no, do you have to clear the board here? I suppose. All right.
Yeah, I would say that Hunter wants to snowball on you. They're very much okay with you playing 2 mana draw a card.
To my side.
Oh, this curve is looking nasty here for Purple because he's got the Faceless Corruptor, which is also a series of cards that's difficult to deal with for Nalguidan.
Mm-hmm. Bog Beam is a draw. It doesn't really help out Nalguidan much at all in this situation.
Yep, and Nalguidan is purely thinking about Glowfly Swarm and how he's going to utilize it in his hand right now. If he chooses to dump multiple spells this turn, he is going to be stranding Glowfly Swarm.
Right. But if he doesn't, he's going to be taking minimum 5 damage, if not more.
Well, that's almost not really something that he can negotiate with, unfortunately, unless he's willing to Bog Beam and Crystal Power this turn and then Overgrowth.
Yeah.
I guess that's okay because your opponent's like hit the curve, and turn 4 tends to be kind of awkward for Hunter because they don't really play many proactive 4-drops in that deck traditionally.
Yeah, it's tough. Don't envy Nalguidan's situation right now. Clear the board and limit your Glowfly Swarm next turn, or don't do it. Take a lot of damage. Let your opponent build more of a board, and you know, in that sense, letting your opponent build more of a board also limits your Glowfly Swarm, in that they're just going to die right away. It's just going to go Overgrowth.
It's a risk.
Yeah,
it's a risk with high upside, and you know, I think quite frankly that's something that you need to do when you're behind. If he just plays Bog Beam, Coin Crystal Power into Overgrowth, I think that's too slow.
Yeah.
That being said, this
to...
is starting to get kind of out of hand here if you're looking at the board state. 9 power coming in. We have yet to hit turn 5.
Yeah. It's like we were saying, you know, the Glowfly Swarm gets hurt in effectiveness just by virtue of more stuff being on the board for your opponent, too.
And if Nalguidan had drawn a dragon, he actually had a really clever opportunity to use Breath of Dreams and then Bog Beam for free. But now, again, he's going to be playing this Glowfly Swarm, crossing his fingers, so to speak, that there isn't a big punish, and there is. That Basis Corruptor is waiting.
Yeah.
And he's only going to get 4 tokens as well because Exotic Mount Seller was a minion. And it seems like every time Nalguidan needs to have a spell drawn from the top of his deck, it seems like instead the game says, here you go, a minion.
Pretty much. Just throws 2 damage into the Misha because at least then it trades evenly with the Glowfly, but oh, wow. No dragon, at least, for the Scale Rider, so Purple can't utilize that, but certainly seems like Faceless Corruptor is going to be a strong pickup either way.
Yeah, the question becomes,
play.
What does he use the Faceless Corruptor on? And I think the Dwarven Sharpshooter makes the most sense. You're most likely not going to hero power. And now Nalguidan, he is in a troubled spot. He needs a second Bog Beam right here in order to come back into this game. If he does, though,
Overflow.
Okay.
18 HP.
He can still get rushers off this Bog Beam, and he's killing off at least 2 minions. If he gets a rusher, we still might be in business.
Yeah, it's a possibility. Bog Beam goes down, and we'll see what the beast is going to be.
Okay, a reasonably statted one.
Yeah, still not that rushing minion like you were hoping for.
Yep, and the hardest part is that this Mouse Seller is just dead on board. Purple has even more where that came from because this Diving Griffin now guarantees that he draws a Zixor. And actually, the scariest part about that is he could actually guarantee Zixor on curve because he has the ability for the Diving Griffin to get Zixor. Actually, no, I apologize. He doesn't have Scavenger's Ingenuity. That was the previous time he played.
Right. It all blends together after a while.
Yeah.
But the Diving Griffin is still super strong in terms of just getting the Zixor in the hand in the first place. Yeah, and you haven't lost any life. Why not push another 4 to face? 14 for Nalguidan, and draws the Iron Bark, but no big taunts to play it on right now.
Yes, and a moment of reprieve for Nalguidan sees pretty weak development, all things considering. Purple, of course, not happy to see that. Some of the best cards in Nalguidan's deck being drawn in. Now he has a great Mount Seller turn, and Purple has no punish except for the Siamat.
It'll be a big Mount Seller turn potentially, and then after that, Ysera Unleashed can come down. I was wondering, do you want to Bog Beam this right now? Yeah, he's just so worried about taking damage.
Yeah. Oh, he draws Zephyrus. Zephyrus does give him the ability to potentially answer a big board swing from Nalguidan, or in the best case scenario, it can be lethal. If you play Siamat as Divine Shield Wind Fury, and Nalguidan goes for all the stuff, gets 0 taunts, isn't able to kill Siamat, he can actually just get Blessed Champion and hit for 24 damage.
Yeah. A lot of outs right now. Divine Shield Wind Fury is a play, of course. And Nalguidan, we know he does have the one Iron Bark at least, so he can get one taunt, but that's probably not enough.
Yeah, the scary thing is that Nalguidan uses Bog Beam, so that's actually less removal tools for that. And, you can't really blame Nalguidan because it's a poisonous minion, so, you're afraid of what that could mean.
Sure,
But
yeah.
he's going to need these Mount Sellers to get rush minions.
All right.
Whoa,
Fungal
Fungal Fortunes.
At least he knows he's not going to discard Ysera this turn.
Yeah, I guess.
Nothing free, though.
Yeah, it needs rushers.
Yep.
Oh,
Hey,
he gets one.
Wow, he found it. Okay.
Needs another.
Power. And no rush that time. But he's got one more shot.
Interesting that he wants to taunt this move, though.
Trying to protect the Mount Seller, I guess.
Yep.
Time waits for no one.
So,
Yep.
how much damage is this? That
Ooh,
Dino Tamer
Dino-Tamer.
brand comes into the hand.
So Dino Tamer Brand can, if he plays it, which probably isn't the best idea, you can clear out the taunt and then 12 to face with Tiamat. Zephyrus, I'm not familiar enough with Zephyrus to really be able to predict, what you would get in this situation, but I would imagine it'd be something that would help you either get through the taunt or, do some more damage like Black Knight if you just played it right now.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that Zephyrus would offer you Blizzard at the very least. So that way you can freeze the board and react to it. The really scary thing is, what do you do after that?
Right.
Is it actually better for purple to, say, play Dino Tamer Brand, have the 8/8 crush through, and then just clear off the board?
Yeah, I mean, because Nalguidan has an enormous amount of damage on the board otherwise.
Gotta kill this Mount Seller. He's gonna go face? Gonna go face, so he
my
sets up
goodness.
a 2-turn lethal. He says if you have Savage Roar and change, hold
That
on,
is
5,
that's
10.
brave.
14 plus 10 plus hero power is 25. He actually doesn't have lethal. 26 with the Iron Bark.
Yeah, I was looking at what he had last turn. Last turn he did have it, but of course losing the taunt, losing the King Mukla
What to do?
put him a little bit past the limit.
Yeah, that's scary. Nalguidan might just be on the full trade plan now because he sees that aggressive Wind Fury damage.
What would be the damage if you like Wild Growth into Power of the Wild from the excess mana and then Savage Roared? I don't know if that's
I don't
option.
think.
I guess you can Breath of Dreams for the draw too. That's cheaper.
And when you see he doesn't find it, the Power of the Wild I think might have gotten him there because I think he was off by 1 because I counted 25 because he had 14 on the board plus 10 from Savage Roar plus the hero power, so that would be 25. An overflow number 2 though stops purple from being able to get that lethal, so now he might have to just use Zephyrus.
Ooh,
Oh my god,
Power of the
and
Wild.
Power of the Wild!
he finds it. That's huge. Just building the bigger board right now. Wow. Nalguidan might have found a way to pull this one out. And Zephyrus, though, that's the thing. Like, oh, but he can't Zephyrus into Twisting Nether this turn.
Well, he can. Varanus was really interesting if he had Unleash the Hounds.
Yeah. So what would Zephyrus give you? Like Brawl? Would be an option maybe? Or
Yeah, usually in these kinds of situations, it gives you Brawl. Another thing it tries to do is give you a big minion to play, but there really is none. So it looks like he has to go for this Brawl here.
Yep, give himself 5 mana to more or less ensure it. And there's the Brawl. It's not
Problem
over yet.
is, there's a chance that a good minion survives anyways.
Yep. Oh, where's Zephyrus? Oh, he almost lived. It's gonna be still, decent minion, but probably not the best. But Nalguidan at least has breathing room. So, but he doesn't have an Iron Bark to pair with the Ysera Unleash or anything like that.
Yeah, I'm really tempted here by this Glowfly Swarm, but at the same
Yeah.
time, how many does he summon? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? Ysera Unleashed is also pretty interesting to think about.
You don't have a lot of draw to set it up, I suppose.
Right.
And then you're also 10 health. So you're worried, I suppose, at just a bit more damage coming through from face sometimes. But I guess a lot of that's been used by purple.
Yeah, so purple still has the opportunity for weapons, like Stormhammer to come in. He doesn't have kill command, it looks like. And they're still in the Grand Slam.
Well, this is the most likely scenario to get you there, I think, for Nalguidan.
Oh, wow. This actually opens up Unleash the Hounds?
Oh, you're right. That does. That is a pretty big risk to take. But it's Fairy Dragon for the draw.
Okay. The good news here is that purple can't die when he saw Power of the Wild and... actually, no, he didn't see
It was
the
only
Savage
part of the
Roar.
wild. Yeah. So Savage Roar is a real concern for purple here.
12 is 26. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I think he's got it.
Well, I mean, he still has the opportunity for the Primordial Explorer to find a taunt, and I think that is legitimately his out. He also can Zixor. Zixor plus Scale Rider kills off 2 of these things.
Does reduce the damage a bit, but does it reduce enough? I guess the other question too is, does the Moonfires in the hand of Nalguidan maybe give him that little bit extra to get over the finish line?
Now he's dead to Savage Roar. Both ways, he finds Evasive Draconid.
Oh, okay.
I
mean, you have to take the Evasive Draconid, right?
He has to play it, I think.
What? Oh, wow.
Okay, so he's going to bank on the off chance that Nalguidan doesn't have Savage Roar, but he does. And this is lethal for Nalguidan. All he has to do is play the Savage Roar and the Moonfires, and he's there. And you can see the passion in Nalguidan. He's wanted it more than anything. And with this Savage Roar and the Moonfires, this is the final moments here of Purple being a Grandmaster with us in our program. And what a brutal day it's been, but Nalguidan will be the one surviving.
Yeah, well
and
played.
Staying in Grandmaster.
From Purple. Doesn't even need the Moonfires, and Nalguidan takes it 3-2. That was as close as it gets. But, we had a lot of questions about the Druid, but in the end, the Druid wins it. Now, that's a pop-off from Nalguidan. Wow.
Yeah. He is one of the most passionate people that we have in America. He cares so much about being Grandmasters. He puts so much effort in. He's put aside his real life, temporarily last year. When he wanted to go full time into just being a Grandmaster, he was studying to get his architectural degree. He's a very intelligent individual, clearly, but I mean that means a lot to him to be able to stay in Grandmasters. And while obviously it's very sad to see Purple relegated from Grandmasters, Purple has a very successful stream, and he's a very good competitor, and he's had a hell of a career. I would not be surprised to see if Purple chooses to kind of retire from competing in Hearthstone in this kind of fashion. But at the same time, he goes down as one of the best in the region's ever seen.
Absolutely. And so, as we just mentioned, Purple, the player who will be exiting Grandmasters. But if nothing else, I'm sure there's still going to be a lot of Hearthstone-related stuff going on his stream in the future. So if he doesn't make it back in, doesn't choose to do that, you can always find him there.
So with that, pretty intense series to start things off here for the final day of Grandmasters.
Seriously.
That was just our first match. We do have a top 4 championship match to find out who is going to be our representative from this region to go to the World Championships later this year. And, as much as it's been a sad day to say goodbye, there's new challenges to the throne in multiple ways. We're going to have new Grandmasters join the program. We're going to also have new players who are potentially going to get their first ever World Championship appearance, or perhaps cement their legacy as some of their region's best.
Right.
It's kind of a sad moment. I think I'm starting to really come to terms with the fact that I've been casting Purple since the beginning of Hearthstone, basically. And it'll be sad to see him not join us next season.
Yep. Very true. So with that done now, we do have at least a top 4 to look forward to. See who is going to go to Worlds out of NA. And it's impossible to predict because all of these players are extremely good. Some of them coming up, some of them, like you mentioned, long-standing champions. And we'll see if they get back there again.
That's right. So with that, we're just going to get ready for our next series. So we're going to take a bit of a break. And when we come back, we're going to get Championship Sunday top 4 bracket underway here at Hearthstone Grandmasters for the Americas.
Hearthstone Grandmasters is brought to you by T-Mobile. Switch today and rank up to America's largest 5G network. T-Mobile.